There are some doors that open only when the wrong person knocks at the right time. A pair of bare feet in the snow, 9 years old. The hem of a wedding dress, 3 sizes too big, dragging a line behind her like a question no one wanted to ask. She did not run, she walked, 1 foot, then the other. The blizzard pulled at her hair, at the lace of the dress, at the broken doll in her hand. And still she walked toward a single light at the end of Hawthorne Pass Road, where the men in leather lived. Her name was Junie Hartwell, and the man behind that door was the last person anyone in Cedar Falls, Montana, would have called a savior. But Junie did not know that. Junie only knew what her mother had told her once, in a whisper, 3 winters ago. If you ever need to run, run to the men with the steel cross. They will not ask the wrong questions. So she ran, and she knocked. And when the door opened, she looked up into a face she had never seen before, and said 5 words that would tear a town in half. If this story finds you tonight, stay with me. Someone you love may need to hear how it ends. Cedar Falls sits in a valley the maps barely remember. 2,400 people, give or take a funeral. 1 stoplight, a diner that closes at 8, and 11 miles north, at the end of a road that loses its pavement halfway, a logging barn turned clubhouse where the Iron Saints have lived since 1991. The barn smelled of wood smoke and engine oil that night. A storm warning had been on the radio since noon. By 10, the windows had gone white. By 11, the road outside had disappeared under 3 feet of new snow, and the wind was rearranging the world. Caleb Mercer sat alone at the long pine table, a bottle of Old Forester, a glass with 2 fingers left, a photograph face down beside the glass, the way he always kept it on the 17th of January. He did not turn it over. He had not turned it over in 6 years. He only needed to know it was there. Outside, the generator rumbled. Inside, an old pendulum clock measured a kind of time that did not belong to any year. The men had gone home before the storm closed in. Doc Reed had offered to stay. Caleb had told him no. Some nights a man needs his ghost to himself. He was lifting the glass when he heard it. A knock. 3 taps. Soft, the way a child knocks on a door she is not sure she should be at. He set the glass down. Listened. The wind, the generator, the pendulum. Then again. 3 taps. A little weaker this time. Caleb crossed to the door and pulled his maglite from the hook by the frame. 30 years old, that flashlight. He had carried it through Fallujah and back. The grip was worn down to the brass. He opened the door 6 inches. The cold came in first, then the snow, then the smell of wet wool and something else, something he could not place. He shone the maglite low, the way a man does when he is not sure what he will find. The beam caught a pair of bare feet, blue at the toes, a hem of white lace stained brown at the bottom. He raised the light slowly, a dress that did not fit, hands clutching a rag doll with 1 arm hanging loose, and then a face, a child's face, maybe 8, maybe 9. Hair the color of winter wheat, plastered to her cheeks. Eyes the wrong shade of gray for that much fear. Caleb did not move. The girl looked up at him, and her mouth opened. No sound came out. She tried again, mister. Her voice was small, cracked. Mister, please. They're making me marry him tomorrow. I'm only 9. Caleb did not react the way most men would have reacted. He did not curse. He did not pull her inside. He did not raise his voice or call for help or take a step back. He set the flashlight down on the bench by the door. He set his glass of whiskey on the bench beside it. He took his jacket off the peg, the heavy one, the canvas one, with the patch on the back, and he stepped outside into the snow. He closed the door behind him. The cold hit him through his shirt. He hardly noticed. He crouched down so his face was level with hers, and he wrapped the jacket around her shoulders. It swallowed her. The patch on the back, a thorny cross of barbed wire, fell against her arm. What's your name? His voice was quiet. Not a question, an invitation. Junie, Junie what? She hesitated. Her mother had taught her, once, that names had weight, that you did not give them away to cheap. Hartwell. Caleb nodded once. He had heard that name before. He could not remember where. How old are you, Junie? 9. I told you, you did. I needed to hear it twice. He looked past her, into the dark, into the white wall the storm had made of the road. Somewhere out there, 11 miles of nothing, was a place she had walked from. He could see it in the blood on her heels. He could see it in the way her body was shaking, but her hands were not. She had practiced this. He could feel that. She had practiced walking through hell.
Junie. Yes, mister. Who's coming for you?
She did not look at him when she answered. She turned her head toward the Spenson, toward the dark behind the snow, toward the place where the mission range stood invisible somewhere beyond the storm. The prophet. She said it the way other children said the dark. And he knows I'm gone. Caleb carried her inside. He did not lift her like a child. He bent his knee and let her climb onto his back the way she would have climbed a tree, and she did with. The doll pressed flat between her chest and his shoulder. He kicked the door shut behind them. The barn went still again. He set her down by the stove. The cast-iron belly of it threw a deep red light across the floor. Junie stood inside the jacket and stared at the room. The pendulum clock, the long pine table, the rows of photographs on the wall, men in desert tan and men in leather, some of them with a small, black ribbon pinned beside the frame. What is this place? It's a clubhouse, like a children's club. No, sweetheart, like a place men go when they don't have anywhere else. She thought about that. Then she nodded, the way a child does when a thing makes sense in a way she cannot yet explain. Caleb went to the wall and pulled a CB radio from its mount. The phones had been dead for 2 hours. The cell tower in town went down with the first wind, the way it always did. The CB was older than most of the men who used it, and it worked when nothing else would. He keyed the mic. Edith, you on. A long crackle. Then a voice, dry as kindling. Where else would I be on a night like this, Caleb Mercer? I need you over here. Bring dry clothes, girls' clothes, 8, 9 years old, and bring your warm shawl. A pause. Whose child? That's the question. I'll be 5 minutes. Don't drink any more whiskey till I get there. He almost smiled. He set the mic back. Junie was watching him. Who is Edith? A friend. She lives across the road. She'll help you out of that dress. She looked down at the dress. Her hands went to the bodice, to the lace at the wrist, and her fingers closed around something inside the sleeve. Not tightly, just enough to know it was there. Caleb saw the gesture. He did not ask. Edith Walsh came through the door 7 minutes later with snow on her shoulders and a wool coat the color of bark. She was 79 years old and built like a fence post that had survived too many winters to count. She took one look at Junie, at the dress, at the bare blue feet, and her face did something it had not done in a long time. She knelt down in front of the girl. Hello, sweet pea. My name is Edith. I've come to help you get warm. Hello, ma'am. You don't have to call me ma'am. Edith is fine. Yes, ma'am. Edith laughed once, soft. She held out her hand. Junie took it. They went into the back room together. Caleb stayed by the stove. He could hear them through the wall. Edith's voice low and steady. The small sounds of fabric and water. And a girl learning how to be a girl in a new way. When they came back, Junie was wearing a flannel shirt that came down to her knees, thick socks pulled to her thighs, and a quilt around her shoulders. Her hair had been combed. Edith was holding the wedding dress folded over her arm, and on top of the folded dress was a long white envelope, yellowed at the edges, with a red wax seal that had cracked sometime years ago. It was in the sleeve, Edith said, sewn into the lining. The girl wouldn't let me open it. Junie looked at Caleb. Mama said only to a good man. Caleb did not move. What makes you think I'm a good man, Junie? She tilted her head, considered him. You closed the door behind you before you asked my name. You didn't want anyone inside to see me cold. He did not have an answer for that. He took the radio off the wall again. Mara Sutton, this is Rook. You on. A different crackle. A young woman's voice, alert in the way deputies learn to be alert at midnight. Rook, I'm at the substation. Roads are closed past mile marker 8. What's wrong? I've got a child here, 9 years old. She came down off Hawthorne Pass in a wedding dress. The line went quiet for what felt like a full breath. When Mara spoke again, her voice had changed. Say that again, Rook. Hawthorne Pass. The compound. She walked out tonight. Stay where you are. Lock the door. Do not let anyone in who is not me, Mara. Yes, who are they? A pause. They call themselves the Children of the Threshold. The prophet is a man named Thaddeus Kell. I grew up in that compound until I was 14, Caleb. They are coming for her. Storm or no storm, they will come. The CB went silent. Caleb hung the mic back on the wall. He looked at Edith. Edith looked at Junie. Junie was sitting on the bench by the stove, the envelope in her lap. Both her hands resting on it, the way a person might rest their hands on a sleeping animal. Caleb walked over. He sat down beside her. The bench creaked under him. Junie. Yes, mister. My name is Caleb. Yes, Caleb. Can I see the letter? She looked at him for a long moment. Then she pressed the envelope flat against her chest with both palms, and she shook her head once. Not yet. All right, I have to read it first. All right. The pendulum clock struck midnight. 12 slow strokes. Junie counted each one under her breath. When the last stroke faded, she said the thing that made Caleb feel the room tilt under him. My mama wrote it 3 years ago, she said. By the time I gave it to a good man, she would already be gone. The blizzard did not stop. It only changed its mind about how to be cruel. By 1 in the morning, the wind shifted east, and the snow came in horizontal lines, scraping at the windows like something trying to find a way in. Edith put a pot of milk on the stove and stirred it slow, with a wooden spoon her own mother had carved. Caleb sat across from Junie at the long pine table. The envelope was on the table between them, unopened. Junie Z was looking at the photograph he had left face, down beside the whiskey. Can I? He understood the question before she finished it. Yes. She turned the photograph over with both hands. A girl of 11, brown hair in 2 braids, sitting on the gas tank of an old Harley, with her feet not quite reaching the pegs, smiling the way children smile when they think they will be smiling forever. What's her name? Ellie. Where is she? Caleb did not answer for a long moment. Edith stopped stirring at the stove. The pendulum clock measured the silence the way it measured everything else. She drowned 6 years ago, in a lake about an hour from here. She got past the rope on the swim platform, and she went under, and I was on the dock, and I jumped, and I got there about 30 seconds too late. Were you a soldier then? I had been a soldier. I wasn't anymore. So you came home from the war and your daughter died? Yes. And then your wife? Yes. Junie touched the corner of the photograph with one finger, very gently. The way a person touches glass they do not want to leave a print on. I'm sorry, Caleb. I know you are. She looked up. That's why you live here, with the men who don't have anywhere else. That's why. She nodded. Then she pulled the envelope toward her and broke the cracked wax with her thumbnail. The seal came apart in 2 clean halves. She lifted out a single folded sheet of paper, lined, the kind torn from a child's school notebook. She unfolded it. She looked at it for a long time. Then she said, very quietly, I will read it out loud, because I think my mama wanted me to. Caleb did not speak, she began. My darling Junie, if you are reading this letter, then I have gone, and I am sorry. I tried to take you with me. I want you to know that I tried, but there were too many doors and I could not open them all at once. Edith sat down at the table. The wooden spoon stayed in her hand. I am writing this on the morning of your 6th birthday, because as I have been told by the prophet that you will be sealed at 9, that gives me 3 years to find a way out for us both. If you are reading this, I did not find it in time. I am leaving the letter where they will not look, inside the sleeve of the dress they will make you wear. Junie's voice did not shake. She was reading the way she had been taught to read, by candlelight under a floorboard. The way you read, when reading is a thing you are not supposed to know how to do. I am writing the names of the girls who have been sealed before me. I want someone to remember them. Sarah Beth Coombs, Mariah Dell, Hope Yarrow, Pearl Whitaker, Eden Crane, Abigail Poston, Ruth Sims, 7 names. Some of them are still alive. Some of them I do not know. Some of them I last saw walking into the elder's house with their hair pinned up like a woman. Caleb felt something settle in his chest. Not anger. Anger was easier than this. This was the cold that comes when you understand that a thing you suspected is true. Below the names I am writing the numbers. The prophet keeps a brown leather book in the safe in the office behind the chapel. The combination says the day his mother died, which told me once when he had drunk the communion wine alone. 11, 22:61. The book contains every account they have hidden, every dollar they have moved, every name they have promised to a man. Edith put a hand over her mouth. My Junie, I have taught you to read, because I could not teach you to leave. Reading is the second best thing. Reading will tell you when a man is lying with his soft voice. Reading will tell you who you are when no one else will. If a good man finds this letter, ask him to take you to the law. Not the sheriff in town. He is one of theirs. There is a young deputy from Spokane named Sutton. She came from us. She will know. Junie paused. Her finger held the place. The last thing. I love you more than the world. I have loved you since the moment they told me I was carrying you. Even though I did not yet know your name. I named you Junie, because June was the month I first read a book all the way through. I learned to read because of you. Remember that. She lowered the paper. She did not cry. Edith was crying, quietly with the wooden spoon still in her hand. Caleb sat with his palms flat on the table. Junie, yes, Caleb, your mama was a brave woman. Yes, she was. Do you know where she is now? I think she's in the well. The one behind the chapel that doesn't have water anymore. The prophet told the women she went into the world. But the women don't go into the world. The women don't even go to town. How long ago? The summer I turned 7. Edith stood up. She crossed the room. She picked Junie up the way you pick up a sleeping cat, without asking. And she held her against her shoulder, and Junie put her face into Edith's neck and made no sound at all. Caleb went to the door. He stood there, with his hand on the frame and his back to the room. It was a long time before he turned around. Doc Reed came in just before 3. He had come down the road on the snowmobile. 6 miles is in 0 visibility, because Caleb had radioed him after the letter. Doc was a wide man with red hair going gray and hands that were too soft for the body they belonged to. He set his medical bag on the table, and he knelt in front of Junie, and he asked her in a voice she would later remember as the voice of the first man who did not want anything from her. If she would let him look at her arms and her back, she let him. He did not say anything while he worked. He took photographs with a small camera. He noted things in a small notebook. He spoke once, to ask if a particular mark hurt when he pressed near it. And Junie said no, that one was old. The new ones were on the other side. When he was done, he put the notebook and the camera in a manila envelope and he sealed it with packing tape. And he wrote a date on it. He handed it to Caleb without a word. Caleb put it in the safe under the bar. Outside, the wind had begun to ease. Junie was on the bench by the stove again, wrapped in Edith's shawl, the broken doll in her lap. She had opened the doll's stitched-up belly with her fingers and pulled out what was inside, a small square of brown paper, folded 4 times. She unfolded it carefully on her knees. It was a drawing, a child's drawing, of a woman in a long dress, holding a little girl's hand. Both of them were smiling. The woman had been drawn with brown hair, and the girl with yellow hair. And beneath them, in shaky letters, were 3 words. I learned to. Edith looked over Junie's shoulder. What was she going to write, sweet pea? She didn't finish. She always said she would finish it when we got out. Caleb walked to the window. The first gray of morning was starting to come up behind the mission range. Somewhere, beyond the snow, he stood there with his hands in his pockets, across the road, where Edith's porch light burned through the white. 3 pairs of headlights had just turned in from the main road. 3 black trucks, moving slowly down the long drive toward the clubhouse. Caleb did not move from the window. He counted the trucks. 3. He counted the silhouettes inside them as the headlights swung across the snow. 2 in the lead, 2 in the second, 1 in the third, 5 men. He turned from the window. Edith, take Junie into the back room. The one with the steel door. Lock it from the inside. Don't open it for anyone but me or Mara. Edith did not argue. She lifted Junie, the doll, the drawing, the shawl, and she carried them through the kitchen and down the short hall to the room where the club kept its ledgers and its history. The lock clicked once. The bolt slid home. Caleb opened the front door 6 inches. He did not put on a jacket. He did not pick up a weapon. He stood in the doorway in his flannel shirt and his work boots, and he waited. The 3 trucks rolled up to within 30 feet of the porch and stopped. The driver of the lead truck got out first. He was a tall man, narrow, in a black overcoat that went down to his calves. He moved the way a man moves in a place he believes he owns. He did not slip on the ice. He did not shield his face from the wind. 3 other men got out of the second and third trucks, bearded, heavy coats, hands in their pockets. They stood beside their vehicles, and they did not come closer. Only the man in the overcoat walked toward the porch. He stopped at the bottom of the steps. He smiled. "Good morning." His voice was soft. It was the voice of a man who had spent 30 years learning that a soft voice carried farther than a loud one. "You must be Mr. Mercer. I have heard your name in town." Caleb did not answer. "My name is Thaddeus Kell. I am the spiritual leader of a small community north of here. I believe a child from our community came to your door tonight. A very confused child. We have been searching for her since before midnight. Her father is sick with worry. Her father in the spirit, Mr. Mercer, which in our community is the same thing." Caleb looked at him for a long moment. "You walk up these steps, and I will consider it trespass." Thaddeus Kell tilted his head an inch. "I am only here to bring my daughter home. She is not your daughter, and she is not going home." The smile did not move. It only thinned. "Mr. Mercer, I appreciate that you mean well, but the law in this state is very clear on parental rights. The girl is a member of our community. Her mother is dead. Her custody falls to the elders. I have papers in the truck if you would like to see them." "I would not, Mr. Mercer. I am a patient man. That makes one of us." Behind Caleb, the sound of the door. Doc Reed stepped out onto the porch. Then Marcus, the club treasurer. Then 2 more, woken by radio, who had ridden in on snowmobiles in the last hour. None of them was armed. They stood on the porch, behind Caleb, and they put their hands in their pockets. They were not a threat. They were a wall. Thaddeus Kell looked at them. He looked back at Caleb. "This is a private matter." It stopped being private when she walked 11 miles in the snow. The wind moved between them. The pendulum clock in the clubhouse, faint through the open door, struck the half-hour. Headlights came up the drive, a single set, moving fast. A county sheriff's vehicle, white with green markings, rocking on the ruts in the snow. It pulled in between the trucks and the porch, and the door opened. And Deputy Mara Sutton stepped out, with her hand resting on the radio at her shoulder. She did not look at Caleb. She looked at Thaddeus Kell. Thaddeus Kell's smile faltered for the first time. He recognized her. Caleb saw it. The small tightening at the corner of the mouth, the flick of the eye to the patrol car, to her uniform, to the badge deputy. "Mr. Kell, it has been a long time. 15 years. You have grown. That is what people do when they are allowed to." The wind picked up. The third truck driver shifted his weight. Mara walked up onto the porch. She stood beside Caleb. She did not raise her voice. "Mr. Kell, we have an active welfare investigation involving a minor child found at this address. State law allows me to detain that child in protective custody pending review by the Department of Family Services. The child will not be released to anyone tonight, including you. Deputy, I have raised that child since she was an infant." "You have not raised her, Mr. Kell. You have kept her." Thaddeus Kell's face did something then. It was very small. A muscle near the eye. A breath he did not take. He looked past Mara, past Caleb, past the wall of men in flannel, into the doorway of the clubhouse. And in that doorway, framed in lamplight, in a flannel shirt that came to her knees, Junie Hartwell was standing. She had let herself out of the back room. Edith was behind her with both hands on her shoulders. Junie was looking at Thaddeus Kell. She did not look afraid. She looked the way a person looks at a thing they have seen so many times. The seeing has stopped meaning anything. Thaddeus Kell took 1 step toward her. Mara Sutton put her hand on the grip of her radio. "Don't." He stopped. He spoke. His voice softer than it had been all morning. "Junie, sweetheart, come on home now. Your sisters are worried. Your mother would have wanted." Junie did not blink. She took 1 breath. She made it count. "My mama left me a letter." Thaddeus Kell went very still. "She wrote it 3 years ago. She wrote down the names, and the numbers, and the day your mother died. the wind, the generator, the pendulum. 11, 22, 61. Thaddeus Kell's right hand, the one in his coat pocket, made a small motion that was not a motion. It was the absence of one, as if a man had forgotten how to move, because the room he was standing in had changed shape around him. He looked at Mara. "Deputy, I would like to leave now." "You are free to leave, Mr. Kell. You are not free to take anyone with you, and I will be issuing a request for a federal warrant within the hour." "Federal. FBI. Their office in Helena. They have been waiting on a name like yours for a long time." Thaddeus Kell turned. He walked back to his tuck truck. He did not slip on the ice this time either, but it took him longer to reach the door. But the other men got into their vehicles. The trucks turned in the snow, slow and heavy, and they went back down the drive in the gray light that was almost morning. When the last set of taillights disappeared behind the trees, Caleb felt Junie's hand slip into his. He looked down. "You were not supposed to come out." "I know. Why did you?" "Because he needed to see me say it." The trucks were gone an hour when Caleb went to check on Junie and found the bench by the stove empty. The doll was on the cushion. The shawl was folded over the back. The drawing was set on top of the shawl with a stone from the windowsill weighing one corner. Nothing had been taken. Nothing had been disturbed. The back door was still locked from the inside. He stood very still. He did not call for her. He walked the rooms one by one. The kitchen, the hall, the bathroom, the back office where Edith had locked her earlier, the boot room. Each door he opened, he closed behind him. He found her in the garage. She was sitting on the steel stool beside his Harley, both hands flat on her knees. The maglite beside her on the workbench switched off. The garage was cold enough to see her breath. She looked up when he came in. "I'm sorry, Caleb." He pulled a folding chair over and he sat down across from her. "You don't owe me, sorry, but you owe me an answer. I went to count." "Count what?" "Count to myself, so I would know I was real." He did not understand it yet. He waited. "In the compound there are 64 people. I always knew how many. If somebody was missing, I knew. If somebody new came, I knew. I counted 3 times a day. Morning bell, noon bell, night bell. If the number was wrong, somebody was being sealed, or somebody was in the well, or somebody had gone into the world. Counting was how I knew I was alive, because if I forgot to count, I would forget that I was one of them, and if I forgot I was one of them, they would notice." She looked down at her hands. "I came out here because I wanted to count something that wasn't them. I counted the tools on your wall. There are 31. I counted the bolts on the wheel. There are 5. I counted the patches on your jacket. There are 9. And when I got to 9, I sat down, because 9 is my age. And it was the first time in my life I counted to my own age, and it meant me." Caleb did not move. He did not trust his voice for a long moment. Then he said very quietly, "All right. All right. All right. You count whatever you need to count, Junie Hartwell. You count this whole damn world if you need to. You just tell me before you go, next time, so I know which room to look in." She nodded. She slid off the stool and walked across the cold concrete, and she leaned her head against his shoulder. He did not put his arm around her. He let her decide how much weight she wanted to give. She gave a little, then a little more. They stayed like that for a while. The FBI came at 9. 2 agents in a black SUV behind a state police escort. The road plowed to the clubhouse in the early light. Mara met them in the drive. Junie was in the kitchen with Edith. She had been allowed to eat oatmeal with brown sugar for the first time in her life, and she had eaten 3 bowls and asked for a 4th. The agent in charge was a woman named Reyes. She was younger than Caleb expected and quieter than he expected. She did not raise her voice. She did not push. She sat on the bench by the stove, and she asked Junie if Junie would be willing to give her the letter and the drawing and the doll and the dress. Junie said yes. Junie asked if she could keep the doll once they were done with it. Reyes said yes. By noon, a federal warrant was on the compound. By 2, the safe in the chapel office had been opened with the combination 11-22-61, and the brown leather book had been logged into evidence. By 3, 7 girls had been removed from 7 different homes, none of them older than 14. By 4, the well behind the chapel had been searched. and a woman who had been missing for 2.5 years had been brought up into the cold afternoon light. Her name was Hannah Hartwell. She was 34 years old. They buried her 4 days later in the small cemetery on the hill above Cedar Falls. It was the first day. The sky was clear in 2 weeks. Junie stood between Caleb and Edith. She wore a navy blue dress that Edith had sewn for her in 3 nights. She held the maglite in both hands. She did not cry. She watched the dirt go onto the casket, and she said, under her breath, the same 3 words 6 times. I learned to. When it was done, she handed the flashlight to Caleb. Then she took it back. I want to keep it. Is that all right? It's yours, sweetheart. That night in the clubhouse, by the stove, Caleb sat with the broken doll on the table and a small spool of black thread from Edith's basket. He sewed the right arm back on. He was not good at it. The stitches were uneven. The thread doubled and knotted in places it should not have. Junie watched him work. When he was done, he held the doll out to her. She looked at it for a long time. Then she said, Mama's stitches were like that too. Spring came late to Cedar Falls that year. The Mission Range held its snow until the last week of May, and the creek behind Edith Walsh's house did not run clear until the first week of June. By then the compound, at the end of Hawther Pass Road, had been emptied. The chapel had been condemned. The well had been filled in. Thaddeus Kell was being held without bail in a federal facility in Helena, awaiting a trial that would last most of 2 years and would produce a verdict the women of 7 counties would weep at when it came. Junie Hartwell turned 10 in June. Edith was her legal guardian. Caleb was her legal co-guardian. The papers had taken months, and the judge had asked Junie a great many questions. And Junie had answered each of them with the steady, unblinking precision of a child who had learned long ago that her words were the only door she could open by herself. On the first day of school, she rode to the gate in the passenger seat of Caleb's pickup truck. She wore jeans and a sweatshirt the color of new grass. The maglite was in her backpack. She had counted the things in the backpack before she left the house. There were 7. 7 was a good number, she had decided. 7 was the number of girls her mother had remembered. She climbed down from the truck. She turned and looked back at him through the open window. Caleb, yes, if I forget to count today, will I still be me? He thought about it. He did not answer fast. You'll still be you. Counting was a way of staying alive in a place that wanted you not to. You don't need it here, Junie. But if you want it, it's yours. She considered that. She nodded once. She walked to the gate. She did not look back again. That summer, the Iron Saints held a barbecue in the long grass behind the clubhouse. The brothers came with their wives and their children and their dogs. Edith brought a pie. Doc Reed brought ribs. Mara Sutton came in jeans, off-duty, with her badge in her pocket and her hair down for the first time anyone could remember. Junie laughed that day. It was not a big laugh. It was a small one. It came out of her sideways. The way a laugh does when a person is testing whether the world will hold it. The world held it. She drew a picture for Caleb that evening. A small thorny cross of barbed wire, careful, in pencil, on the back of a paper plate. Under it, she had written 4 words in her best print. I learned to stay. He pinned it to the wall above the bar, next to the photograph of Ellie. And he stood there for a long time, looking at the 2 of them together. And there are some doors that open only when the wrong person knocks at the right time. And there are some doors that once opened, never close again. If this story found you tonight, share it with someone who needs to remember that goodness does not always wear the face you expect. Comment below where you are watching from, and keep your porch light on. You never know who is walking through the snow.